everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Deep Thoughts. And today we are here with the first video in our Autumn Odyssey here on the channel, and today we're going to be talking about Ahiru no Sora, Episode 1, The Ugly Duckling. Now before we begin, I do want to let you guys know that if you would like to have your name shouted out in next week's Ahiru no Sora video, then be sure to share this video around on the internet and then tag me at JoJo Talks Too Much over on Twitter, and I will be sure to shout your name out in next week's video. Now with that said, we have the first premiere of the season, and how does it hold up? How do we start our Autumn Odyssey here on the channel? Well, it starts on a pretty good note, honestly. In this video, I'm going to be tackling three things. I'm going to be tackling the Haikyuu similarities, because there is a number of them. We're going to be talking about the mean attitude the show has, and believe me, that is a compliment. And we're also going to be talking about some music, some sound, some additional stuff on the side towards the end of the video. So before anything though, we should probably start with the Haikyuu similarities, because you may hear this come up in other videos. I don't know if I'm going to be the first person to point this out. I highly doubt that, because it's not something the show hides. It's very on the nose. I mean, for one thing, the main character has Hinata Shoyo syndrome to the extreme. Our boy is very, very small. He's a small boy, but there's nothing wrong with a small boy. There is nothing wrong with being a shorter player when it comes to basketball. I'm sure there are shorter players. I don't really watch NBA, so I have no idea if that's true or not, but probably. Maybe I'll put in a picture of a short NBA player here. I don't know, man. I'm Canadian. I just watch hockey. And figure skating. Figure skating is actually more of my thing than hockey. Messing is my boy. And Ahiru, he is also my boy. I could talk about figure skating forever though, so I'm just gonna go ahead and move on. The point is, I am sure that being a shorter player isn't necessarily a death sentence, although with most sports, like volleyball, like basketball, being tall is obviously going to have some advantage since you're going to have an easier time scoring points. And our main character, I believe his name is Sora Kurumatani, and they really hammer in the Kurumatani part, so that's the part that I remembered, and the Sora part was easy because, I mean, Kingdom Hearts. But yeah, I don't think Kurumatani is necessarily gonna be in a bad place, considering the boy's got technique out the wazoo. Just like our boy Hinata, he has the skills to back up his mouth, and he does have a big mouth, just like Hinata, and it does get him into a spot of bother every now and again, but I mean, it's kind of part of the charm. He is very Hinata. He's short, but he makes up for it with his technique, his potential, and his tenacity. They are very similar characters, and I'm pretty much guaranteeing that you'll probably hear that comparison a lot. The other big comparison you can point out is the bird motif. Just like in Haikyuu with the crows, in this one we have, I believe it's a sparrow? I'm not super sure what the bird is, but there is a strong bird motif, and they even talk about flying, how inside the bag is his wings. Inside the bag is Sora's wings that he can fly with. So yeah, Kurumatani has that sort of, like, I want to fly. He wants to fly high. I'll stop making Haikyuu references from now on. Maybe. But, like, it's true. Like I said, the similarities are there. But if anything, I would say that the only other real comparison in the show, besides the Hinata thing and the bird thing, is kind of the fact that it's a defunct club. In Haikyuu, the club isn't defunct, it's just sort of on its last legs by the time Kageyama and Hinata show up. Here, the club is straight up defunct. Like, nobody actually plays basketball. In fact, they actively dislike the sport. So it's a little bit different, and overall, I'd say, while, like I said, there is similarities, honestly, this is a much meaner version of Haikyuu, and before you get upset, that is a compliment. So with that, we're going to transition into the next thing I want to talk about with this premiere, and that is the mean attitude. Like, this show's got an attitude to it, and I really dig it. Everywhere from the characters' interactions with each other to the overall mood of the show, even to the soundtrack. Like, it's not some sort of, like, upbeat, boppy sort of soundtrack. It's got this, like, sliding electric guitar in the background, and it very much fits the overall, I don't know if even mean is quite the right word, more just like grungy, sort of more realistic, down and dirty kind of show. Like, the characters aren't super pretty, like, say, Haikyuu or Free. These characters are a bit, like, drawn with a very different art style. It's a very interesting character design. It feels a little bit more raw and real than the Bishonen style sports anime with stuff like Kuroko. This one feels a little bit more raw, a little bit more like intense, and I kind of dig it. Honestly, the character designs perfectly fit the mood that the show's going for, because the characters are introduced as mostly kind of jerks, or in Kurumatani's case, he's introduced as getting his ass kicked, which is kind of surprising. Honestly, I feel like if you had to cross anything over with Haikyuu in order to get this show, it would likely be the game series Yakuza. And I'm sure to some of you that's gonna be like, huh, what? There's no Yakuza in this. There's not. But there are Yankees in this, and they do really give me Yakuza vibes. Like, in particular, they give me sort of like Majima, like the main buddy who he meets, Chiaki, I believe his name is. He's basically what you get if you cross Majima with Kiryu. Like, not so much in character design, but in personality. Because he is very much like, he stands up for the righteous, he has a good heart, but he also has that playful side and sort of the lazy side that Majima has, where he's just kind of going with the flow, and that's the kind of character we get. And the Yakuza vibes don't end there, because the Yankee toughs that we see here, while very classic to anime, and I was kind of happy to see them, some things aren't cliche, they are classic, although I'm sure cliche is going to be something this show gets, an insult that will be hurled at the show quite a bit. I will say that personally, seeing the Yankee toughs got me excited, because I knew basically what we were in for the rest of the episode, and I quite enjoyed it. And the moment of Chiaki meeting the blonde-haired kid, who we find out are brothers, they're the twin brothers. All I could think of was like, they're the twin dragons of Dojima. I mean, they're totally the ruffians of the court. Yeah, that's totally what I meant. These two almost start straight up fighting on the court. They are about to before Kurumatani like stops them by saying like, how about we just friggin' play basketball? Is that a thing we could do in this show, please? And we'll get to the basketball scene towards the end, because yes, it's only a scene, but hey man, they're trying to set up the world here. Give them a second. And I will say, like, that whole aspect of this first episode I find really intriguing. We spend more time with these characters than we do with the actual sport, which I kind of figured going into this show, but the mood they set up is interesting, man. It is a much more, like I said, raw and mean, like, not mean-spirited, but just like a meaner take, like a angrier, not even angrier, just more raw and real take. Like, the main character's backstory this time around actually isn't just there to make you feel bad, it actually informs his character. It's part of the reason why he wants to play basketball and the reason why he cares so much about the shoes. And we can go ahead and talk about the shoes now. The shoes are an important heirloom to our boy, as they are a remnant of his mom, who apparently was a former basketball player herself, supposedly quite good, and the shoes are a hand-me-down from her to Kurumatani, and Kurumatani obviously treasures these, and obviously these are probably going to come into play heavily. I'm kind of expecting the shoes to get ripped or torn at some point down the line, because dramatic tension, but they play a key role in the show, and it's not just like a MacGuffin, it actually feels like part of Kurumatani, judging off what we've seen here in this premiere. I thought it was really well handled, like the whole shoe element and the tragic backstory. Obviously, since we saw the mom in the hospital in the last flashback, we can assume that she is no longer there, and it's part of the reason why he cares about the shoes so much. Maybe she still is, but I mean, judging off most sports anime / anime in general, parent characters tend not to last very long if you see them in a hospital in a flashback, so I can only assume that, sadly, the mom's probably not around, but again, informs Kurumatani's character. And I gotta say, as much as I did compare him to Hinata, he is a strong character. Mind you, like I said, some people will call him a Hinata clone. I wouldn't go that far. I feel like Hinata is a much more upbeat and plucky character, whereas Kurumatani is much more down in the dirt. He's more of a grounded, real character with a tragic story, but he hasn't let that keep him down, and that's sort of where the Hinata parallels come back in. They're similar characters, but I would not call him a clone, nor would I call this show a Haikyuu, like Haikyuu but basketball. Like, I wouldn't go that far. I mentioned earlier the sliding electric guitar for the OST at certain points, and I gotta say, the OST is like I said, very fitting for this show. I would say that the OP and the ED are not quite that. They're good tunes. They are, but they're just sort of, they almost sort of clash with the vibe I think the show's going for. Happy Go Ducky by The Pillows is pretty laid back, with sort of brief flashes of a more darker tone that the show will have. Not the song itself, but the opening visuals. The song itself is, like I said, it's a laid back tune, it's interesting, The Pillows are good. But yeah, I don't know if it necessarily fits. I like it, don't get me wrong, but I just don't know if it's quite the song and visuals I would have gone for given what we got in the premiere. The ED is catchy, though a bit basic in its visuals. I do assume they're going for a more minimalist approach with the ED, and I honestly kind of like it. It seems like you're just sort of hanging out with the characters on the court. This is obviously after the actual team assembles. Personally, I enjoy the minimalist approach. I can certainly see some people calling it lazy. I personally didn't view it that way. I thought it was pretty well handled. Again, I've seen better OPs and EDs, but I've also seen much worse. These are pretty okay. And lastly, I want to go ahead and talk about the basketball scene and just some additional notes that I want to point out. The actual scene of Kuromatani playing basketball. Now, I don't know any of the moves they said. Again, I'm not super familiar with basketball, but they did animate it, in my opinion, pretty decently. The characters, like, when things start to go down and Kuromatani's like pulling like moves on the characters, like making them think he's going one way and then he goes another way. It's done in this sort of slow motion. In that slow motion, we get to see the characters like really like thinking about each different movements, and in real time it would be like too quick and you wouldn't really get a look at what the characters are doing. It's very, like, it's obvious, like, it's again, another cliche, but I would argue it's more of a classic sports trope because, you know, it lets you get more in the characters' heads as Kuromatani like bobs and weaves around these folks like a duckling, which is where I think the title comes back into play, and I thought it was really well handled. Honestly, the actual like sport itself, like the playing of basketball, was pretty interesting. I do think it maybe took a little too long to get there, but honestly, I kind of dig it. It's not really meant to be a heavy, like, basketball, oh my god, let's talk about basketball. It feels like we're gonna be focusing more on the characters, which, honestly, I'm kind of here for. Speaking of the characters, I gotta say that Madoka, the girl, is friggin' cool. I was surprised to see that we were actually gonna, like, hang out with not only the boys' basketball team, but the girls' basketball team, and that Madoka seems to be playing a big role in the show. I'm excited for that. She's freaking cool. She kind of feels like scrawny Maki from Fire Force, which I'm kind of here for. And when I say scrawny Maki, I'm not mocking Madoka. I just mean like there's actually a flashback with Maki in Fire Force where she has smaller arms than she does in the show. That's what I got from Madoka. That's basically who she looks like to me. And in terms of her personality, yeah, she's also very Maki. I feel like they just pulled Maki out of Fire Force. They're like, no, this character's too cool. She needs to be in a different show to like really let her shine. And yeah, I'm kind of here for Madoka. I like Madoka quite a bit. I hope we see more from this character. And I believe that will wrap up this video. I think that's all I have to say. That's the first video of autumn, everybody. We did it. Overall, I'd be happy to put this premiere into the B tier premiere. I thought it was good. I had a good time with it. There's obviously some stuff that I think can improve as we go forward with the show, but honestly, I was pleasantly surprised. I really enjoyed this. But hey, before we end today's video, as always, I want to give a big shout out to the good folks over on Patreon, namely those in the Earl Grey tier: Calvin Atkinson, Crowbar of Irony, Dominic, Urza, Ginkotaku, No For Nothing, Maria Teresa, Mirth Mouser, Nye, Omnigaramond, Cell, Shadow Creative, Sipco Games, Somastan, Steven, Tristan, and Varidan. Thank you all so much for your continued support over on Patreon. It is super appreciated, and if you too would like to join the T Squadron, then by all means go ahead and check out the first link in the description to check out our Patreon page, see all the cool rewards you can get over there, as well as access to our Patreon exclusive Discord. But on that note, everybody, that is going to be a video. I hope you guys enjoyed the first video of autumn, and if you did, then you've probably been on the internet long enough to know what to do already, so I ain't gonna tell you, but I will say that it is appreciated, and if you are feeling stressed out today, you go have yourself a warm cup of tea, and I will talk to you all again real soon.